Fear is the path to the dark side.
Suddenly, there was activity on the roof. Someone shouts, "There is still another person." They ask Self-Defense Force troops to help. There were survivors in the car. An elderly person had been stuck in this car. The person was rescued safely 10 minutes later. It turned out there were 3 elderly people. The car had been covered in mud and debris, and they could not get out. And for 20 hours, they were trapped in the car. She was washed away by the waves, and that she was afraid. This is Arahama in the Wakabayashi district of Sendai City, north of Natori. This area suffered devastating damage as well. In Arahama, 200 to 300 unidentified bodies were washed onto the beach. Right now, staff at the ward office are on duty 24 hours. The ward officials, they themselves are also victims. With no accurate assessment of the extent of the damage, the ward officials are distributing supplies of fuel and food to the evacuation centers. As how many more days' worth of supplies they have, the ward official says he has no idea. This ward official says that there is just not enough people, not enough manpower, because water and blankets are all very heavy. And the same people are delivering the supplies 3 or 4 times a day, so everyone is very tired. Roads have been cut off. Therefore, some areas have no access to supplies. Supplies which were prepared in the morning finally reached this evacuation center at 7 p.m. We met a woman who has not been able to locate her husband who went to his office to work even 1 full day after the earthquake. This woman says that he was at home the day the quake hit, but he went back to the office again because he was worried about the company, and he did not come home even at 7 or 8 p.m. She headed off to her husband's company to look for him. She walked to a spot where she should have been able to see his building. But there was no building in sight. The whereabouts of more than 10,000 people remain unknown. Scores of people are looking for their husbands, wives, parents, and children. For each and every one of the victims are waiting for rescue to come as soon as possible. Now, in the NHK Sendai studio, we have a researcher who has been carrying out research on tsunami prevention. It's Professor Fumihiko Imamura of Tohoku University. Professor Imamura, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. Professor Imamura, you have visited many tsunami-stricken areas around the world, and from your eyes, how did you view the tsunami that hit Japan this time? Well, in 1992 in Nicaragua, and in recent years, in 2004 in Sumatra, we had many earthquakes and tsunamis, and the scale and the disaster, as well as what caused these disasters. I have been making research on all these things. However, the earthquake and the tsunami, the scale of that, and also the damage, the extent of the damage, seems to be the worst ever that I've seen. Well, Professor Imamura, you live in Sendai, and your research base is in the Tohoku area. Natori, that you've seen in the VTR, and also Wakabayashi Ward, I believe you have visited many of these areas. You have also spoken with the residents there to try to prevent any disasters like this from happening. Yes. Well, we in Tohoku region, in the Meiji area, we had the Sanriku earthquake, and there was a prediction that there will be a great earthquake within 30 years. There was a 99% possibility. Therefore, we were trying to prepare ourselves from tsunamis. And of course, tsunamis will strike immediately after earthquakes. And we thought that if we evacuated, we will be able to keep ourselves safe. Therefore, we planned evacuation routes, places where we should evacuate. We discussed with the residents, and people were preparing for such disasters. So we really regret this horrible disaster. And we can't really see the total extent of the damage, and there are many disaster-stricken areas scattered over a very broad area, and we see that rescue efforts are not carried out very speedily. Well, yes, in a major tsunami like this, the roads on the land, and also we can approach the area from the seaside. Many of these access routes are disrupted, and the tsunami advisory has just been lifted, but still we can approach these areas from the sea. It is really a devastation that we see in front of us. I think this is the reality of a major tsunami. However, we cannot stop trying to make efforts to rescue people who are waiting for us. We need to assist the victims so that we can help them recover and restore their lives once again. Now, as you carry out your research, from a researcher's viewpoint, what can you tell us about this disaster? Well, it's not just the tsunami, but the basic point in disaster prevention. First of all, you need the facilities like breakwaters, seawalls, strong facilities to evacuate to, and also information. Information is necessary in order to evacuate people, and you need to prepare beforehand. And depending on the scale of the disaster, you need to prepare. However, the things that happened was beyond our expectation. So everything was beyond expectation. We understand. Well, thank you very much. We'll come back to you later on.
The latest earthquake was a huge, immense scale, which the government's earthquake research committee says that it was beyond assumption. And the tsunami that was caused by the quake was also beyond assumption, and it affected a wide area. Water is pouring over the seawall. This is Kamaishi. A huge waves engulfed the city in an instant. From Tohoku to Hokkaido and all the way to Kanto, great scars of damage was observed after the quake and the tsunami. Water was gushing in the Miyako city of Iwate Prefecture. Especially hard hit was the constant coastlines of the Sanriku area. This is a Rias coastline with small inlets and coves. Once a tsunami comes into this area, water concentrates into these small inlets. Especially in these areas, there were several earthquakes with their focus off the Miyagi coast. People were prepared against tsunami disasters. In Miyako City of Iwate Prefecture, there is this district called Taro. This is a photograph taken 115 years ago, after the Meiji Sanriku earthquake. 22,000 people lost their lives because of a major tsunami. The district lost 83% of its population. Then in 1933, after the Showa Sanriku earthquake, 500 households out of a total 559 were washed away or collapsed. People wanted to prevent another tsunami disaster from happening, so in 1934, the people of Taro district decided to create a seawall. And in 1967, after 30 years of construction, a 10-meter tall seawall was completed. The wall was created along the inlet and river in Taro district. It expands an area of 2 kilometers. It was supposed to be an impregnable seawall. If we were to create a seawall like this today, it would cost several billions of yen. However, the seawall could not prevent the massive tsunamis from hitting the city. The massive earthquake's energy was said was massive. It is said that this was a once-in-a-millennium type of earthquake, and the tsunami waves easily went over the 10-meter high walls. One survivor says that it was a really severe tsunami. It wasn't just the tsunami, but also the earthquake itself was horrible. She said that thinking about the 1933 tsunami, she thought that she would be okay. However, the water poured over the wall, and that was why she was drenched. The fire department people helped her to get here, she says. Another survivor says that there used to be a home there where you see a car. He points to where his house used to stand. Asked how the waves came and struck. He says that he heard on TV that the tsunami waves were 4 meters high. However, He says that these seawalls are 10 meter high, but the waves were higher than the...
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.